try to remember the very first thing that ever happened to you. Not a story someone told you, not a photograph you have seen so many times it feels like a memory. The actual first moment your mind recorded and kept. If you are like most people, you are reaching back right now and finding almost nothing before the age of 3 or 4. Maybe a blurry image, a color, a feeling. But the full, rich detail of your earliest years is simply gone. You cannot remember your childhood, and there is a very strange reason why. This is one of the deepest puzzles in all of psychology. It is called infantile amnesia, and it has confused scientists for over a century because it seems to go against everything we know about the young brain. A baby's brain is growing faster than it ever will again. It is learning language, recognizing faces, figuring out gravity, forming emotional bonds. By every measure, a toddler's brain is a sponge. And yet, almost none of those early experiences survive into adult memory. The very period of life when we are learning the most turns out to be the period we remember the least. So what is going on? Why would a brain that is so powerful, so absorbent, so hungry for information, fail to hold on to the memories of its own beginning? The answer is not simple. It involves a strange trick of biology, a missing piece of identity, and a language barrier that most of us never think about. And perhaps the most surprising part of all is that this forgetting is not a flaw. It might actually be a gift. Let us start with the biology. And to understand what happens to early memories, you first need to understand a tiny, seahorse-shaped structure deep inside your brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is your brain's memory center. It is the place where new experiences are turned into lasting memories. Every time you learn a name, navigate to a new coffee shop, or remember what you had for breakfast yesterday, the hippocampus is doing the heavy lifting. It takes raw experience and weaves it into something your brain can store and retrieve later. Without it, new memories simply cannot form. Now here is where things get interesting. In the early years of life, the hippocampus is not sitting still. It is doing something remarkable. It is building new brain cells at an extraordinary rate. This process is called neurogenesis, and in infants and toddlers, it is happening at levels far beyond what you see in adult brains. New neurons are flooding into the hippocampus by the thousands. And at first glance, this seems like it should be a good thing. More brain cells means more processing power, right? More capacity for learning and memory. But the reality is the opposite. And this is where one of the most fascinating theories of childhood amnesia comes in. Researchers Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn, working out of the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, proposed something called the neurogenic hypothesis of infantile amnesia. Their idea goes like this. When a memory forms, it is stored as a pattern of connections between neurons. Think of it like a web. The experience is encoded in the specific wiring between specific brain cells. As long as that wiring stays intact, the memory can be retrieved. But when a flood of new neurons arrives, those new cells do not just sit quietly next to the old ones. They push their way into the existing circuits. They form new connections, and in doing so, they disrupt the old ones. Imagine you have a beautiful mosaic made of tiny tiles, each one carefully placed to form a picture. Now imagine someone comes along and starts pulling out tiles and replacing them with new ones, over and over, thousands of times. The original picture would not survive. The tiles might still be there, but the image they once formed would be gone. That is essentially what is happening in the infant hippocampus. The rapid creation of new neurons is remodeling the brain's memory circuits so aggressively that the patterns holding early memories get overwritten. Franklin and Jocelyn tested this idea with a series of elegant experiments using mice. They trained young mice to fear a specific room by pairing it with a mild shock. Then they waited. Normal young mice forgot the fear quickly, just as you would expect with infantile amnesia. But when the researchers gave those young mice a drug that slowed down the production of new neurons, something remarkable happened. The mice remembered. Their fear memory survived. By turning down the rate of neurogenesis, the researchers had essentially turned down the rate of forgetting. Then they did the reverse. They took adult mice, who would normally remember the fear for weeks, and artificially boosted neurogenesis in their hippocampus. Those adult mice started forgetting just like the young ones. The pattern was clear. High neurogenesis leads to rapid forgetting. Low neurogenesis leads to stable memories. And the infant brain, with its extraordinary rate of new neuron production, is essentially a forgetting machine. This is not just a mouse phenomenon either. When researchers studied guinea pigs, animals that are born with much lower rates of hippocampal neurogenesis compared to mice and rats, they found something striking. Infant guinea pigs could remember trained tasks for up to 75 days after training, performing just as well as the adults. The species that is born with fewer new neurons flooding the hippocampus retains its early memories far better. The pattern holds across species. The more neurogenesis happening in infancy, the more forgetting you get. And here is the truly mind-bending part. This rapid forgetting in early life is not unique to humans or even to mammals in labs. It has been observed across every species that is born in a relatively helpless state and goes through significant brain development after birth. It is an ancient, deeply conserved feature of how developing brains work. But biology is only part of the story. There is another layer to this puzzle, and it is about something far more personal. It is about who you are, or more precisely, who you were when those early memories were supposed to form. Consider a composite example based on observed patterns in child development. Picture a child named Leo, about 18 months old, sitting in a park on a warm afternoon. He watches a butterfly land on his shoe. He laughs. His mother lifts him up to see a dog walking by. The sun is warm on his face. It is a perfectly ordinary, perfectly beautiful moment. And he will never remember it. Not because his brain failed to notice it, not because it was not important enough, but because Leo does not yet know that he is Leo. This might sound strange, but it cuts to the heart of the second major explanation for childhood amnesia. To form an autobiographical memory, a memory of something that happened to you, you first need to have a stable concept of you. You need a sense of self, and that sense of self does not arrive at birth. It develops gradually over the first few years of life. Psychologists have studied this using a clever experiment called the mirror test. A researcher secretly places a small dot of rouge on a toddler's nose, then puts the child in front of a mirror. If the child reaches for their own nose rather than the mirror, they demonstrate self-recognition. They understand that the person in the mirror is them. Most children do not pass this test until they are somewhere between 18 and 24 months old. And even then, the sense of self is still fragile and incomplete. Researchers Mark Howe and Mary Courage propose that this emerging cognitive self is a critical turning point for memory. Before a child recognizes themselves as a distinct individual, they cannot anchor experiences to a personal narrative. They can learn. They can recognize patterns. They can form habits. But they cannot create the kind of autobiographical memory that says, "This happened to me, in this place, at this time, and this is how I felt about it." Without a main character, there is no story to remember. Think about it this way. Autobiographical memory is not just a recording. It is a story, and every story needs a protagonist. Before a child develops a sense of self, experiences flow through their mind like water through a sieve. The water is real. The experiences are real, but without a container to hold them, they pass through and are gone. Research from multiple labs confirms this link. Studies have shown that the volume of a young child's autobiographical memories is predicted by both the strength of their self-knowledge and their ability to process information as self-relevant. The stronger the sense of self, the more memories the child retains. The self and memory develop together, each one feeding the other in a cycle that grows stronger with age. But there is still a third piece to this puzzle, and it might be the most intuitive one of all: language. Think about the memories you do have from childhood. Almost every one of them exists in your mind as a kind of internal narrative. You remember what happened in words. You can describe the scene, the people, the feelings. Even your most vivid visual memories are tagged and organized with language. Your brain uses words like file folders, sorting experiences into categories that make them easy to find later. Now think about a 2-year-old. Their vocabulary might be a few hundred words at best. Many of their most intense experiences happen before they have the words to describe them. A thunderstorm, a scraped knee, the taste of something new. These experiences land in the brain without labels. They are what researchers call pre-verbal memories, and they pose a unique problem for the adult mind. Here is why. As you grow up, your brain becomes increasingly verbal. The way you think, the way you remember, the way you organize your inner world, all of it becomes deeply tied to language. When you try to retrieve an old memory, your brain searches for it using the tools it has now, which are primarily linguistic. But those early memories were never encoded in language. They were stored in a completely different format, one that your adult brain no longer knows how to read. It is like trying to open a file on a modern computer that was saved in a format that no longer exists. The data might still be there, buried somewhere on the hard drive, but you have no program that can open it. The information is not destroyed. It is just inaccessible. Your adult brain speaks one language. Your infant brain spoke another, and there is no translation software available. And this is not just theory. Studies of children across different cultures have shown a direct link between the development of language and the age at which childhood amnesia begins to lift. Children who develop language skills earlier tend to have slightly earlier first memories. Cultures that emphasize verbal storytelling and elaborate parent-child conversations about the past tend to produce adults with earlier and more detailed childhood memories. Language does not just help us remember. It helps us build the very framework that makes remembering possible. There is also a cultural dimension to this that most people never consider. Research by psychologist Chi Wang found that childhood environment significantly shapes autobiographical memory. Western children, raised in cultures that emphasize individual experience and emotional expression, tend to have earlier first memories than children raised in Eastern cultures, where the focus is more on social harmony and collective identity. American children in the study provided more emotionally detailed memories, while Chinese children offered memories that were more general and less focused on the individual. The way a culture talks about the past literally shapes how early memories are formed and retained. So we have three forces all working together. A hippocampus that is remodeling itself so aggressively that early memory circuits get overwritten. A sense of self that has not yet developed enough to anchor experiences as personal memories, and a language system that has not yet provided the tools needed to encode and retrieve those experiences. Any one of these alone might cause some forgetting. Together, they create a nearly complete blackout of the first years of life. But here is the question that might be lingering in the back of your mind. If all of this is true, if the brain is essentially designed to forget early childhood, then why? What is the point? Why would evolution build a system that throws away the very experiences that seem most formative? The answer might surprise you. This forgetting is not a bug. It is a feature. And once you understand why, it changes the way you think about memory itself. Think about what the infant brain is actually trying to do. It is not trying to remember what happened last Tuesday. It is trying to figure out how the entire world works. It is learning the laws of physics, the rules of language, the basics of social interaction, the emotional landscape of its family. This kind of learning, the kind that builds deep foundational knowledge about how reality operates, does not require episodic memory. In fact, episodic memory might actually get in the way. Here is a way to think about it. Imagine you are learning to ride a bicycle. At first, every attempt is full of specific, vivid experiences. You remember falling to the left, then overcorrecting to the right, then the handlebars wobbling. But once you actually learn to ride, you do not need those individual memories anymore. In fact, holding on to every single wobble and fall would clutter your mind and make the skill harder to use. What you need is the general knowledge, the muscle memory, the intuition. The specific episodes can go. The infant brain works the same way, but on a much grander scale. It is extracting the rules from the raw data. It is building a model of the world. And once those rules are extracted, once the model is built, the raw data can be safely discarded. The neurogenesis that wipes out specific memories is the same process that makes the brain flexible enough to learn at such an extraordinary rate. You cannot have one without the other. Research supports this interpretation. Scientists have described childhood amnesia as an adaptive mechanism in the maturation of brain circuits. The brain is not just passively losing old memories. It is actively clearing space for new learning. The flood of new neurons that disrupts old memory circuits is also the thing that gives the infant brain its remarkable capacity to absorb new information. It is a trade-off. You lose the specific moments, but you gain the ability to learn from them. And here is perhaps the most comforting part of all. Those forgotten years are not truly gone. They are not erased from the universe. They are woven into the fabric of who you are right now. Research has shown that even when early memories cannot be consciously recalled, they leave behind what scientists describe as a memory trace, a kind of invisible imprint that continues to influence behavior long after the original experience has been forgotten. Studies in both humans and other animals have demonstrated that early life experiences, even those that cannot be explicitly remembered, continue to shape emotional responses, social behavior, and even the physical structure of the brain. A child who was held often as an infant may not remember any specific moment of being held, but that experience shaped their attachment style, their comfort with closeness, their sense of safety in the world. A child who heard music every evening may not remember a single song, but the neural pathways that formed in response to those sounds are still there, quietly influencing their emotional responses to melody and rhythm for the rest of their life. In other words, the memories are gone, but their effects are permanent. The experiences of early childhood are not stored as stories you can tell. They are stored as patterns in your nervous system, as tendencies in your personality, as the emotional coloring of your inner world. You cannot access them the way you access a memory of last summer, but you carry them with you in a deeper, more fundamental way. Consider a narrative illustration of a child named Mia, who moved across the country at age 2. She has no memory of the move, no memory of the old house, no memory of the friends her parents left behind. If you asked her about it, she would have nothing to tell you. But she has always felt a strange sadness when she sees moving boxes. She has always found transitions difficult. She has always preferred the comfort of familiar places. The specific memory is gone, but the emotional residue remains, shaping her experience of the world in ways she will never fully understand. This is the paradox of childhood amnesia. The years we cannot remember are the years that shaped us most profoundly. The brain that was too busy growing to hold on to memories was doing something far more important. It was building the foundation of everything that came after. Every skill you learned, every emotional pattern you developed, every instinct you carry was forged in those forgotten years. So the next time you try to reach back to your earliest memory and find only fog, do not think of it as a failure. Think of it as evidence that your brain was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. It was not recording, it was building. And the person you are right now, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you move through the world, is the living proof that those lost years were not wasted. They were the beginning of everything, and that is a truly beautiful thing to forget. Now, here is what I want to leave you with. Think about the earliest fragment of memory you can find. Not the whole scene, just the fragment. A color, a sound, a feeling. Whatever it is, it survived one of the most aggressive forgetting processes in all of nature. It made it through a hippocampus that was rebuilding itself from the inside out. It survived before you even knew who you were. That tiny fragment is a survivor, and it is the first thread in the story of your life. I would love to know what yours is. Drop it in the comments. The earliest fragment you can find. You might be surprised by how many of us share similar ones. And if you found this interesting, feel free to like and subscribe. We will keep exploring the quiet mysteries of the mind, one gentle night at a time.